Hello and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Tuesday, the 19th of July. I want to talk to you a little bit today about doing a new thing, about having the courage to try something in your older years. Throughout my life, I've had to do new things because we moved a lot as a kid, and then as a priest, and now married to a military person, we move a lot. So doing new things is not foreign to me. As a matter of fact, it's sort of second nature. Doesn't mean I'm good at it, but I do it all the time. But I have noticed that in life, there is sort of a settling in that happens. The older you get, sometimes, not always, but sometimes the easier it is to just sort of be calm and to settle, like I said, settle in, to have the same habits, the same rhythms and routines, to to not like change. I'm Anglican. Anglicans have this thing called tradition. If you do it twice, it's a tradition and you never stop doing it. You go into a church and you sit in the first pew on the left-hand side. The first Sunday you go, and the next Sunday you go and you sit there again. The third Sunday you go, if someone's sitting there, you're ticked off because somebody's sitting in your pew. You've only been there twice, but it's your pew. It's tradition. There's something, though, to be said for change in your older years. I mean, I look back and think if I had only known then what I know now, the different things I would do. I do wish I had the energy I had back then. And I'm afraid that will probably just continue to, become a bigger theme in my life, but maybe not. Work on that. But this idea that as we get older, we don't want things to change. I live with that. I live with a lot of my parishioners are older folks who have had, life has been good, and why would you want to? But I also see what happens when they get to that point where, they have to move. They decide, you know what, we've lived in our house for so long, it's time to move into an apartment or into a senior's residence or something like that. And there's a lot of hemming and hawing and a lot of time going into the decision. And then the process of making the decision. And then after the fact, looked on a year or two later, and I hear things like, it's the best thing we ever did. Why didn't we do it sooner? This is fantastic. We have a new community. We don't have to worry about the stairs anymore. Or, our meals are made for us. Or, thousands of things. Lots of really great things happen when we take on change. Well, my own congregation's going through a bit of change. There's a congregation up the road from us, about 40 minutes away, that has had no priest since last November. Their priest, who was a part-time priest, retired. She worked hard, spent a good portion of her life being a very faithful priest, and when time came, she said, I need to stop and focus on being a retired priest. And she's done well. It's just been good for her and healthy. But what happened is, rural Alberta, rural Alberta, the church, maybe you have places like this too, where it's hard to find somebody who's willing to move 2 or 3 hours away from a city center to work for part-time wages and have no house to live in and things like that, who would come. So they've been without a priest since November, and I've been helping out once a month. My husband Rob is very gracious to go to my two churches to do the service while I go up to them in Vermilion. Well, we've come to sort of a time where we're looking ahead and thinking, you know what, it won't be long before my churches in Wainwright and Edgerton are going to be struggling a bit to be able to cover the costs of, costs are going up. Income's not going up, but the costs of everything are going up. I'm sure you know that in your own household. And we're looking at that ourselves. So we're in conversation with Vermilion to look at what might a new relationship look like. What might it look like if we were 3 churches with one priest instead of 2 churches with a priest and who goes out and sort of hangs out once in a while? And we're looking at creating this new community, a new relationship. And there's some people who are really like, no change. We don't want to do that. And there's some people who are like, absolutely, best thing ever. This is incredible. But most of the people are sort of like, okay, I understand why. And I understand we need to. And I wish we didn't have to, but we can do this. We can do this. Let's make it not too hard on ourselves. Let's not have too much change too fast, but we can ease into this. And I'm thinking that as the process goes on, I have a meeting tomorrow. I'm hoping I have a meeting tomorrow with stakeholders from each of the churches to sort of talk about the practicalities of this. How might this work, and how will we work the logistics out? But I'm really hoping that this will be an opportunity for us, like folks who have decided to give up the farmstead that they've lived at for the whole of their adult lives and move into town to the apartment, or move into a senior's residence where they don't have to worry about things. They don't have to cut the grass, and they don't have to worry about their car. Get underground parking. You don't have to shovel yourself out. We get a lot of snow here in Alberta. Things like that. Those things are taken care of so that they can enjoy the wonder years, the real wonder years of their lives. And that's what we're trying to do here for these three churches, is find a way that we can ease the tensions, ease the worries in such a way that we can allow people to worship and to gather and to celebrate what it is to be a Christian, what it is to be an Anglican in Wainwright, Edgerton, and Vermilion. So I think that's awesome. And I'm aware that folks are a little bit nervous. However, I have great hope, because great things can come from those uncomfortable places. There's a story, I can't put my hand on it right now, but when I used to do this thing called Fresh Start, we go into congregations, a couple of lay people and I, who had found out that their priest was either retiring or moving on to a new church, and so they were in transition, and they hadn't yet hired a new person. And I read them this, it's called The Parable of the Trapeze, and basically what it's about is there's a trapeze artist swinging back and forth on their trapeze, on their bar, trapeze bar, and they see the other one has been released. It's coming toward them, and they're excited because there's this other trapeze bar is coming. It's heading toward them. They see it, but then they get scared, because in order to reach out for that one, they know that if they reach out for that one and still hold on to the old one, they're going to be torn apart. They have to reach out. They have to let go of the old one to reach for the new one. But for a split second, they will be floating in air. There's no trapeze bar to hold on to. That time of transition is terrifying. What happens if? What if there's no net? What if I fall? What if I can't reach the bar? What if my hand slips? But in that split second, they trust that they can do this, because they've been training their whole life to do this. They've been training their whole life to do what God has called them to do. So they let go of the old bar and reach out for the new. And in that split second, between the bars, they know the excitement and the joy and the wonder of that moment of knowing it's okay and what's going to come next. What will this adventure hold? And then they grab onto that new trapeze bar and they swing forward into the future. It's a powerful, powerful parable. I really like it. I wish I could find it so I give credit to whoever wrote it, but it's out there. So my congregations are in this sort of trapeze place. They're sort of getting ready to let go of one bar and reach out for another, and what'll happen. But it's making me think, because predominantly my congregations are older and retired, and it's making me think about that generation. I'm not there yet. The generation ahead of me, my parents' age of my congregation members, thinking about them. And back in the day when I was an arrogant young pup and really didn't think at all about people who were older than me, the assumption I and others my age had was, once you've retired, you're put out to pasture. There's nothing left to give. You got nothing left to give. And that is such absolute bullcrap. That is so ridiculously wrong. Because we're looking at a generation of people who have lived through the 50s and 60s. Some of them might remember the wars, the end of World War II. They might remember Korea and Vietnam. They remember the turmoil of the 60s. They remember civil rights movements. They remember in Canada. They remember when the War Measures Act was invoked because of the kidnapping of two people from Quebec by the FLQ. It's an interesting little tidbit in Canadian history that most Americans don't know. So for my American friends, you should look it up sometime, the FLQ and the War Measures Act from under Pierre Trudeau, who was the father of our current Prime Minister. Please refrain from commenting about our Prime Ministers one way or another. That's a whole other debate. But we have this generation of people who are retired, who have this incredible, they have volumes of information in their heads. They have experiences that we can only dream of. And they have the ability to change the world especially if they were to reach out and work with the younger generations. And I'm not just talking about mine, I'm talking about like the 20-year-olds now, the teenagers who are fighting for things like climate change and fighting to find a way to bring back those values to society that we've seen eroding in the last several years. There's a really great, I don't know if you know who Mandy Patinkin is. I used to like watching him on he was on a doctor's show. I don't know whether it was Chicago Hope or what it was, but he was on a doctor's show. I enjoyed it then. And then he was on Criminal Minds for a while, and he was like phenomenal. But he's also an incredible singer. He's done a lot of Broadway. He's incredible. His wife is incredible too. And they have their own YouTube channel, which I've recently found. And they just make me giggle. They are like an old married couple, and they're just, they're awesome. Well, they recently did a video called The Third Act, and they're encouraging people, Americans, who are retired of that generation, to get involved in society, getting involved in civic things, civic responsibilities, to go hand in hand with the younger generation. And there's a website called thirdact.org that you can connect with to see what it was more about that. But it just really reminded me that the thing that, you know what, just because people get older doesn't mean that they can't change, and it doesn't mean that life is going to be boring or things can't happen. Amazing things are going to happen and are happening in the older generations of our society, and we need to watch, because those of us who aren't there yet, we need to take our cues from them. So if you are, if you're in your 60s or 70s or 80s and you are looking for some ways that you can get involved, check out thirdact.org, and I'll pop it into the message that I put in the description. Or check out Mandy Patinkin and his wife. They're incredible. They're just funny, and they're real. So hope you have a great day, and take whatever life throws at you and allow it to be your trapeze. Let go of what was and reach out for what might come, because you might be absolutely astounded by how incredible the next trapeze bar of your life, what it brings you. God bless, and have a great day.